Welcome back to the channel, everyone. Thanks for tuning in as per usual. So about a Tamil thing there, in relation to the ballistic report, whenever a person plead guilty of being in possession of a firearm, the court doesn't wait for a ballistic report. The ballistic report is not necessary in a case like that. If a person, however, plead not guilty, then a ballistic report is needed to prove, that the weapon is in fact a gun and that it can be fired. That is the reason why Tamili was sentenced without there being a ballistic report present, because a ballistic report was not needed in a case where somebody pleads guilty. Now that we get that out of the way, on to the next thing. In terms of the two loss of lives, people are get the thing twisted in terms of, because Tamili pleaded guilty, it means that a fit him machine. No, it doesn't mean that. Don't mix up ownership and possession. Ownership is, for example, a licensed firearm holder owning a firearm, and him can say, yes, I'm my firearm. That there is solid proof to say that he owns that firearm for however long he has it. Right? There is proof to prove how long him own the machine. Now possession is different. When the police hold someone with a machine and that person pleads guilty to knowingly having that firearm in their possession, they are only acknowledging that yes, the day in question they had the firearm in their possession, and this is what Tamili did. He acknowledged the fact that yes, that day in question, he in fact had the machine, he had the firearm on his person, right? But the misconception out there is that Tamili owning the firearm, right, means that him accept that he owned the firearm from it was made. But the fact is, he pleaded guilty to having the gun in his possession on the day in question, nothing more. And it would be quite difficult for the police to prove otherwise. So like how the police can prove that a licensed firearm holder owned their firearm for 10 years, there's no way to prove that Tamili was in possession of that firearm for any period of time. They can only prove that he had it in his possession on the day in question. Now that you understand that part, make we talk about these two loss of lives and why Tamili won't be charged for murder, or if he is charged, why it will be difficult for the investigators or the prosecution to prove that he is guilty. For the investigators to charge Tamili for those loss of lives and the shooting incidents, it is going to be very difficult, right, to charge him, and it is going to be very difficult to get a conviction if they do. And it all depends on the evidence that the investigators have as it relates to those two cases of loss of life. The first problematic thing in any case of this nature is identification, right? That is the first thing in any case. You have to can identify the accuser, you have to can identify the person who committed the crime, right? And if you cannot do that, then the case is weak. So the case dead before it even start. So to charge Tamili for those loss of life, you have to have somebody who can place him on the scene of the crime, or can place him in the vicinity of where the crime was committed, right? So you can't just get up and say yes because he had the machine, right? Because he was held and he pleaded guilty to being in possession of that machine, then you can charge him because it has some dope upon it. No, it is not that simple, right? If there's nothing in evidence to place him on the scene of the crime, then the weapon alone, right, won't hold up in a court of law. A case like that can't carry no water. You understand? You have to put Tamili on the scene, because you can't tell him that he had the machine, he had that weapon for over a year, or he had it 2 days, right? If him say him get the machine from somebody on that day in question, you can't fight him on that. Furthermore, Tommy Lee has no obligation to prove otherwise. Him no have no obligation to prove to the investigators that yesterday him get the machine, right? And what further complicates this case and make it even harder for the investigators is that it's not like the police found Tommy Lee with the machine on the day of the murder or the day after. If that was the case, they could maybe charge him and use circumstantial evidence to say that them find him with the weapon that was involved in a recent case of loss of life. As I said earlier though, identification would play a very important role in that case. And how are the investigators gonna prove that yes, Tommy Lee pulled the trigger at that time? You know, I get the drift now. First thing the investigators will have to do is to revisit the case and look at the statements to see if anything in it places a man like Tommy Lee on the scene as it relates to description, right, of the murder suspect. But the thing about that is that Tommy Lee is a popular man, very popular, right, and everybody know him. So putting Tommy Lee on a identification parade and him getting pointed out, right, wouldn't be saying much because everybody know Tommy Lee. And having someone coming to point out a man who was held with the murder weapon and seeing that a Tommy Lee, because the information is out there now that he was held with the murder weapon, right? From them looking at the parade, they will see Tommy Lee because, as me say, he is very popular. So anybody see him, go identify him, right? So right there, so you know, say more holes are being put inside of this case. More holes, right? You see the fact that this went public just solidifies my theory that Tommy Lee now go get charged, right? Because it go hard to prove that he was a trigger person, right? And to have this information out there like that before you even hold the ID parade, it is just setting up the case for failure, right? The next thing is that if they force the issue and charge Tommy Lee, there's a lot of holes in the case that the lawyer can use, that the lawyer can target and get him off of all of the charges, right? This information, in my opinion, was released to further tarnish Tommy Lee, right? To further tarnish his name and prove to the masses that yes, dancehall artists are in fact involved in criminal activities, even though they are trying so hard to distance themselves from it. Tommy Lee has a reputation, right? But reputation is not proof when it comes on to the law and courthouse business. So now it is up to the investigators to put together a solid case to prove without a shadow of doubt that these loss of lives and shooting was indeed committed by the artist, or he has knowledge of the incident. And as far as me see it, it won't be easy to prove that he was involved. Now, the way that I see it is that it is reasonable to infer that Tommy Lee is a person responsible for these criminal acts because he was held with the weapon, right? And any reasonable person would have infer or think, say, yes, he is a person who committed these acts and should be charged. And we can understand that, but it can also be reasonably inferred that the weapon doesn't belong to Tommy Lee and that he just had it in his possession on that particular day. There's a lot to prove by the state, and so I honestly believe that this thing is not going nowhere, right? That's my honest opinion. I believe that this is just for the record and nothing more. Either way, guys, that's been it for me. Like the video if you did, give me your thoughts down in the comment section and let us have a discussion. And remember, subscribe to the channel if you haven't. done so already. Catch you guys in the next one. Until next time, blessings.